13 campers vanished. Not over weeks, not over days, not over hours. All at once, in the middle of the night, from the same tent. Their shoes were left behind in the dirt, neatly placed, side by side, still warm. Welcome to Uncommon Stories. If this story stays with you, hit subscribe and tell me where you're watching from and when the truth found you. Now let's begin. They were high school seniors from all over Montana, chosen for an advanced science retreat in the Bitterroot Mountains. Summer of 1994. They called it Camp Echo. 13 kids, 3 chaperones, 2 vans, 1 forgotten story. The first strange thing? No one reported them missing for 36 hours. Because no one knew where they were camping. Not even the school. Not even the state. The program was funded by a private sponsor, a research foundation that promised students a week in the wild, learning about earth science, environmental technology, and personal growth in high-altitude silence. The foundation's name? Oculus North. No website, no record, no history of ever existing before 1994, and none after. They departed on July 8th. 2 vans, 13 students, 3 adults. They left behind phones, watches, journals. Total immersion, the form said. No outside contact. No GPS. Just coordinates scribbled on a waiver that no one thought to copy. The forest ranger, Dennis Mott, was the first to notice something strange. On July 15th, he saw smoke in a zone that hadn't been cleared for fires. He rode his quad up the old mining road, 2 hours into the hills, and found a campsite. Abandoned, too quiet. The fire had burned itself out. No bodies, no blood, just silence and shoes. 13 pairs. The tents were zipped shut from the inside. Food was still on the camp stove. Marshmallows unopened. Backpacks still full. A camera untouched. Battery full. No photos. Just static. Like someone had tried to record something and failed. Dennis radioed it in. Local PD arrived 2 hours later. Then state troopers. Then silence. Because the story never made the news. Not until 5 years later, when a student from the same high school posted about the vanishing camp on an old message board. She'd been one of the alternates, supposed to go, but they cut her last minute. She never got a reason. In her post, she wrote, they'd pick people based on something else. It wasn't grades. They told us it was for leaders, but they only chose kids with migraines. Kids who heard music no one else did. Kids who had dreams about places that don't exist. Most dismissed it until she posted the photo. A scan of the shoes. Not just one pair. All 13. Side by side, labeled, numbered, and the photo's metadata? Timestamp 1 hour after the police arrived. A photo the public was never supposed to see. Dennis Mott was interviewed by the girl, anonymously. He said, the dirt under the shoes was cold, but the shoes were warm. Like they'd just been taken off minutes before. He also said this, they weren't running. They lined up, took off their shoes, then walked barefoot into the trees. The trees were thick, unmapped, but 2 things stood out. First, a perfect circle of disturbed grass 200 feet from the camp, like something had hovered or landed. No prints, no tire marks. Second, a broken compass in the center of that circle, spinning endlessly, never settling north. The official report called it an unconfirmed disappearance. It blamed possible weather disorientation, even though there was no wind, no storm, no reason to leave the tents. And even if they did, why take off their shoes? Why leave them warm? The story was buried. The school never commented. The parents stopped talking. Some say they were paid. Some say they were threatened. All we know is no family ever held a public vigil. No lawsuit. No reward. Like someone asked them to forget. But in 2016, something happened. A wildfire swept through that same section of forest. When it was over, the Forest Service was clearing debris and found a trail, not made by humans. Pressed into the ash were barefoot prints. Small, delicate, dozens of them. No burn marks. No charring, like they'd been left that same day. At the end of the trail, a circle of stones. 13, each one carved with a single letter. The initials of the campers, arranged in a perfect spiral, facing inward. But the creepiest part, inside the spiral, was a recording device. Old, sun-faded, covered in soot, but intact. They played it back. The audio begins with forest sounds. Wind, birds, a distant echo, then silence, then laughter, children's voices, 13 of them, then a sound, a pulse, like breathing, mechanical, low, then a girl says, "It's happening again," just like in the dream. Then static, then silence, then one last line, spoken softly, by a voice we've never identified. We didn't leave. We were chosen. They dreamed the same mountain, all 13 of them, before they ever met, before they were selected, before Camp Echo even had a name. One of the parents came forward in 2002, quietly, privately. She didn't want her name made public, said she was warned, but she needed to talk because of her daughter's journal. Her name was Ava Lynn, 15, smart, shy, second in her class, one of the youngest to ever be accepted into the Oculus North Youth Advancement Retreat. That's how they said it in the letter, with a gold seal, signed by no one. She was excited, terrified, but determined to go. The night before she left, she told her mom something strange. "If I see the mountain again, I'll know it's real." Her mother laughed. "What mountain?" "The one from the dream." Ava said, "It's tall but not snow-covered. There's a red light at the top. It hums." Then she kissed her goodnight and was never seen again. Her journal was never meant to be shared, but the mother scanned pages for the researcher. They showed dreams, drawings, symbols Ava had never been taught, geometries that looked ancient, coded, repeating, always in spirals, sometimes broken, sometimes whole. She wrote, "We're all dreaming the same thing. They told me the others are too." Somehow they knew. The journal ends 3 days before the trip with this sentence: "I know now the red light isn't above the mountain. It's inside it." In 2007, a man named Ray Garland reached out to a local paper. He wasn't anyone special. Not a cop, not a scientist. He was a fire lookout, isolated, alone, up in Tower 19, near the Idaho border. He saw something he couldn't explain. He reported it. Once. No one believed him. Not until years later, when he heard about the 13. He said, "They came out of the trees, just after dawn. No clothes, no gear, all of them barefoot. And they weren't walking, they were following something. Something I couldn't see. He watched them through binoculars, silent, mesmerized. 13 kids, looking upward, like something in the sky was speaking, and each time it pulsed, they stepped forward. He climbed down, tried to intercept them, but when he reached the clearing, it was empty. No footprints, no sound, no smell, just cold, and a faint vibration in the dirt." They showed him photos from the original case. He identified 3 of the campers, said their eyes were blank, Not blind, just tuned. Authorities dismissed him, said he was unstable. But Ray had kept a journal of his own, and in it, dozens of entries about the frequency. He said it came every 7 years, always mid-July, always from the same ridge, the same direction. He tried recording it, failed, but one of the last entries said this: "It's not meant for tape. It's meant for bone, for thought." He died in 2011. Heart attack, alone in Tower 19. When they found him, the radio was off, but his teeth were humming, audibly, low, unnatural. The coroner couldn't explain it. Said the bones showed signs of pressure, like they'd been resonated, like they'd been exposed to sound that never touched the air. Meanwhile, back at the original high school, the forgotten girl, Lena, was still asking questions. She'd been the alternate, the one who didn't get to go. She'd never stopped wondering why. In 2018, she tracked down an old teacher, Mr. Calder. He had worked at the school in '94, but left a year after. Lena found him in a nursing home. Frail, unwell, but lucid. He remembered the letter, the selection, and the warning. He said a man came to the school in spring of '94, dressed formal, no ID. He carried a list, not of top students, not of athletes, but of children who had experienced one specific thing: auditory distortions during sleep. He called it signal-triggered lucid response. Calder asked him what that meant. He replied, "They dream in frequencies. We need to know why." When Lena asked what the man looked like, Calder said, "Not much." His face was soft, like it didn't belong to him. That man's name was never found. No school records, no badge, no files, just a memory and a list. Lena asked one more question. "Was I on it?" Calder nodded. "You were number 14. Lena never slept properly after that. She claimed her dreams grew louder, that sometimes she woke up standing, facing the woods. No memory of how she got there. And then the humming began. It started faint, like air through a flute, then stronger, then unbearable. Only at 3:33 a.m., only once a week. She recorded it with a handheld mic and sent it to a researcher in Prague. He analyzed the waveform and sent her a message the next day. That isn't audio. It's encoded language, and the voice isn't human. The drawing wasn't on paper. It was carved into bark, 5 feet off the ground, with something sharp, but not a knife. The lines were smooth, too precise, not random, not vandalism. A perfect spiral, made of 13 open eyes, each one facing the center, each one crying. Lena found it 3 miles from the old campsite. She had returned alone, 15 years after the disappearance. She parked at the fire road, walked 4 hours through dead pines. No guide, no trail markers, just the coordinates from the police file, and the sound, that soft, pressureless hum, like breath through a hollow throat. She didn't tell anyone she was going, didn't leave a note, just a recorder, a field mic, and one single rule: stay quiet long enough and it'll talk first. She reached the campsite at 5:42 p.m. Nothing remained. The tents were gone. The fire pit was buried. The shoe circle had grown over. But the energy? Still there. The air felt stiff, like the whole forest was holding its breath. Then she saw the carving. Not recent, not weathered. Something about it felt frozen in time. The sap around the lines hadn't dried. Still slick, still red, like blood from a tree that shouldn't bleed. She took photos, notes, then found the second one. On a rock, a shape, unknown, 13 points. one center. A symbol never seen in any human record. When she uploaded it later to an online archaeology group, one person replied, an anonymous account. They wrote, "That's not a symbol. It's a map." That night, Lena camped nearby, alone. No tent, just a tarp. She placed the recorder near the tree line, left it running, and waited. At 3:17 a.m., the temperature dropped. 15 degrees in under 2 minutes. No wind, no storm, just a feeling, like the forest turned to glass. Still, sharp, listening. Then the voices came. Soft, distant, layered. Too many to count. They didn't speak words. They whispered thoughts. Fragmented, disconnected. But Lena understood one thing. They were children, and they were afraid. The recorder picked up 13 separate vocal threads. Not human, not animal, just pure intention. They didn't say where they were, but they kept repeating one idea. We didn't walk away. We were walked. She didn't sleep, just waited for the sun. And when it came, the humming stopped, as if the forest exhaled. She hiked back in silence. Didn't speak for 2 days. Just transcribed what she heard. The audio revealed something else beneath the whispers. A pulse. 12 beats. Pause. 13 beats. Pause. Then one single tone that didn't match any known frequency. It wasn't in the human range. But when slowed down, it resembled a melody. 6 notes. Repeating. She played it on a piano. Sent it to the archaeology group. One user responded instantly. That sequence is present in Sumerian math. Base, 60 patterns. Used to map eclipses and align temples. Another reply. That tone matches the acoustic frequency of the Temple of Kukulkan in Mexico. And another. I heard that exact melody in my dream last night. None of these users knew each other. None had been to the camp, but all heard the same song. Lena became obsessed. She charted the pulses, mapped the tones, searched archives, and found a connection. A document from 1953. CIA program. Redacted. Subject. Project Echo Signal. It referenced auditory contact with off-spectrum intelligences using natural resonance locations. One of the test zones? Bitterroot Mountains, Montana. Same ridge, same month, same goal. Calibrate minds to receive nonverbal instruction. The document mentioned a code name, ONR, Oculus North Research, the same group that ran the camp, the group that never existed. That same week, Lena received a package. No return address, no note, just a VHS tape. She found a way to play it. The tape had no label, no sound, just static. Then a fade in, a forest clearing. The camera shakes, then stabilizes. A voice whispers, "We were told not to film." Then silence. Then children, 13 of them, standing in a line, barefoot, eyes closed, facing something off camera. They don't move, don't speak. Then one lifts her head and begins to levitate. Only a few inches, but enough. The camera drops, cuts out, black. Then a single frame flashes, too fast to see. Lena paused it, zoomed in, a spiral, 13 names, and coordinates. Different from the original site. A new place, further north, unmapped. She memorized them, deleted the file, burned the tape, and booked her flight. She didn't tell anyone where she was going, but 2 days later, a hiker in Idaho reported something strange. A tarp, a recorder, and shoes, 13 of them, lined up, still warm, but no Lena, just a note, pinned to a tree, in pencil. I heard them again. They remember me. And I remember the mountain. They never meant to find it. The ground was too soft, too clean, too wrong. It took one misstep, one collapsed tree, and a scream before they saw the steel. A trapdoor, under moss, under rot, buried just deep enough to be forgotten. But not gone, never gone. The team was small, 3 environmental surveyors, sent by the state. After forest fires uncovered strange soil readings, lead, magnetite, and something no one recognized, a compound that shouldn't exist in nature or anywhere else. They weren't ghost hunters, not conspiracy chasers, just scientists, but what they uncovered felt older than anything they'd ever tested. The hatch was cold to the touch, even in August, and when they opened it, warm air rose, like a breath, from something still alive and sleeping. The stairs were metal, rustless, too clean. The walls? Cement mixed with black glass. No markings, no lights, just a corridor sloping downward, forever. They walked 15 minutes. No end, no side doors, until the hallway widened into a room, not large, but precise. A cube, 9 by 9 by 9. No furniture, just 13 chairs, all facing inward. In the center, a pedestal, empty, no dust, no debris, like something had been removed or never there to begin with. Then they saw the carvings. On the back of each chair, names, 13 names, every missing camper, not painted, not labeled, etched from beneath the surface. The lead surveyor, Dr. Caleb Moore, felt something pull at him, not physically, not even emotionally, but in thought, like gravity had changed, and time didn't feel straight anymore. He sat in one of the chairs, only for a second, and when he stood, he couldn't remember why he'd sat. His colleague asked him, "What did it feel like?" He said, "Like I was listening to something that hasn't spoken yet." They recorded everything, filed it with the state. Within 24 hours, the file was sealed, classified, and they were told to leave it alone. But Caleb couldn't. He kept copies, notes, sketches, readings, and one more thing, a recording the mic picked up once they left the room. Not voices, not footsteps, but a tone, low, repeating, and under it, a murmur, one word, spoken 13 times, resonance. Weeks later, Caleb went back alone. The hatch was gone, covered, filled, as if the forest had swallowed it. But the ground was colder than ever, and in his mind the tone played again, soft, reverent, calling. He wrote a letter to a former colleague, a neuroscientist named Daya. Said he believed the place wasn't just a lab, it was a receiver. And the children? They weren't patients. They were conduits. She dismissed them at first, but then she saw the sketches, especially the one of the cube room. It matched a drawing her brother made in 1994, weeks before he died. He was 14, died in his sleep, unknown cause. His last words? The light is in the middle, but it's not ours. Daya flew to Montana, met Caleb. They went back to the forest together. No map, no GPS, just intuition. And after 3 days, they found it again. But this time, the hatch was open, waiting. Inside, the chairs were gone. The names, too. Just a cube, clean, still, but in the center, a photo, old, folded, placed carefully on the pedestal. They opened it. It showed 13 children, standing in a circle, barefoot, eyes closed, and behind them, a figure, blurry, tall, wearing no face. They flipped the photo. On the back, a note written in block letters. They were not taken. They were tuned. That night, Dia dreamed of the mountain. First time, she said she was there, in the clearing, but the children weren't afraid. They were singing, low, one melody, 13 voices, no lyrics, just sound, and above them, a shadow, humming back. She woke with blood in her ears, nosebleed, shaking, but remembered the song, note for note. She played it for Caleb. He recognized it immediately. That's the tone from the room. The exact one. They began calling it the harmonic, a sequence of 13 frequencies, matching 13 known brainwave signatures, each one linked to a specific part of the mind: emotion, fear, memory, silence, and something else, intuition. Dia proposed a theory. Terrifying, simple. What if the 13 campers weren't just selected for their brains? What if each one represented a different piece of thought? What if the circle wasn't symbolic, but functional? Like keys on a piano, each one playing a note, and together opening something that needed sound awake, a consciousness, not from another planet or dimension, but something already here, buried, sleeping in the bones of the earth, waiting for the right minds, the right tone, the right choir. And the camp was the rehearsal. The spiral was always made of 13. 13 voices, 13 minds, 13 seats in the room beneath the earth. But there was a 14th, always was. They just never said his name, because he never sang. They didn't choose him. They couldn't, because he remembered what the others forgot. It started with a photograph, not the one from the pedestal, a different one, taken months before the camp. A school photo, top row, right corner. 14 students, all smiling, except one, the boy at the end, staring sideways, not at the camera, but at something just outside the frame. Dia found it in a forgotten yearbook from 1994, buried in a bin marked duplicate. The page wasn't damaged, but the names were faded, water damage, maybe, all but one. The last line, a name no one remembered, Isaac Penn. There were no school records, no medical files, no home address, no family, just a photo and his face. Caleb recognized it. That's him. I saw that face in the photo at the lab. But he wasn't standing. He was kneeling behind the others, like he didn't belong. They searched for months. Obituaries, missing persons, hospital logs, nothing until they found the postcard, sent in 1996. No stamp, no signature, just one sentence. I was never supposed to hear it. And below that, a spiral, 14 points. The last one, crossed out. Then the phone call came. No number, no greeting, just a voice. Rough, older, still teenage somehow. It said, "You're too late." It's waking. Then silence. Dia traced the call. A landline, rural Wyoming, abandoned ranger's house. They drove there. The door was already open. Inside, nothing. Just one room, dustless, and on the floor, 13 shoes, lined up, still warm. But this time there was a 14th, facing the others, worn, frayed, as if someone had been walking alone. For years, Caleb noticed the smell. Not rot, not smoke, but iron, like something freshly broken, like old blood waking. On the wall, words scratched deep into wood. They made us listen. I close my ears. They hate me for it. And in the corner, a notebook bound in leather, stiff, stained. Inside, hundreds of pages, diagrams, drawings, maps made from sound. The boy had been recording frequencies by memory, translating them into symbols. Every page pulsed with dread. Some showed spirals with broken centers. Others were covered in black scribbles. But one page stood out, a single sentence. I remember the moment the silence cracked. It bled. The last page contained only coordinates, different from before, far west, near an old military site decommissioned in 1972. The map marked it, Fort Weller. They looked it up. No records, no files, but one memo from 1958. Experiment suspended after Event 6. Echo phenomenon destabilized. Personnel exhibiting auditory hallucinations and nonverbal suggestion compliance. Site sealed. Dia and Caleb went anyway. They didn't bring equipment, just a notebook, the shoes, and the song. It took them 2 days. Snow began to fall on the 2nd. Even in July, they found the fort beneath the mountain shadow. Half collapsed, gutted, but beneath the rubble, a tunnel, still intact, just like the lab from before. But this one was colder, not from ice, from memory, from what had been left behind. The walls were lined with mirrors, cracked, blackened, and behind each pane, a face, 13, mouths open, frozen mid-scream. Not corpses, not drawings, imprints, like screams made marks that never faded. They moved deeper. The hallway narrowed. At the end, a door. Metal, locked, but on the wall next to it, a handprint, burned into stone, not by fire, but by resonance. The notebook had the matching pattern. Dia pressed it. The door opened. Inside, a theater, rows of seats, facing a single chair, like the camp, but older, and in the center seat, a jacket, child-sized, still warm. They took one step forward, and the tone began, low, staggering, like breath through broken wind. It didn't echo. It absorbed. Dia collapsed, holding her head, eyes wide. She whispered, "He's still here. He never left." He saw what it was. He screamed without a sound, and it listened to him. She blacked out. When she woke, Caleb was gone. No footsteps, no voice, just her and the chair, still rocking, still warm. She staggered outside, back to the trees. The snow had stopped. The sky above was pink, like dawn, but wrong. And in the distance, she saw him, a boy, walking barefoot, toward the trees, dragging something behind him, a spiral, drawn in the snow. She called out. He turned, but had no face, just a sound, a low hum, 13 tones, then silence, then one more, the 14th. He wasn't dead, not yet, not Caleb, but he was gone, not lost, not missing, not buried in the woods like the others. He was inside something, and that something had a heartbeat. Dia could feel it, even miles away, in her chest, in her teeth, a rhythm, slow, wet, deliberate, like it had been sleeping for centuries, and had only just begun to stir. She didn't go home. She didn't call for help. She knew no one would understand, not the faces in the walls, not the names that vanished, not the silence that could scream. She just followed the signal. The tone had changed since Fort Weller. It wasn't 13 anymore. It was one long, aching note, like a warning, or a welcome. She wasn't sure which was worse. The coordinates from Isaac's notebook pointed further north, near the border, unmapped forest. No towns, just cliffs, caves, and one word, sink, written in charcoal, barely legible, underlined twice. It wasn't a place. It was an instruction. She found it 3 days later. A clearing in the rocks. Perfect circle. Dead trees on the rim. And in the center, a hole. Black. Still. Not made by man. Or time. She dropped the stone in. Never heard it land. The notebook had a drawing. A spiral. With a single dot at the center. Labeled. Throat. Dia sat at the edge for hours, not speaking, not moving, and then she heard it again, the voice, not external, not in the air, inside. You brought the song. The others brought silence, but you bring choice. She wept, not from fear, from the sheer weight of it, the pressure of being seen by something without eyes, something that knew what she had lost. She asked it one question. Where's Caleb? The voice replied. He saw too much, not with eyes, with shape. He is part of the pulse now. You can join him, but you must hum. She refused, but her mouth opened anyway, and the sound came out, the harmonic, all 13 notes, perfect, slow, soft, but then she added a 14th. The note no one dared to play, the one Isaac buried, and the ground shook, the spiral beneath her cracked. A ring of earth collapsed. Dust rose like breath from lungs that hadn't inhaled in decades. And then she saw it, not a machine, not a temple, a structure, vast, angled, alive, half stone, half bone, etched with markings that matched Isaac's drawings. A cathedral of signal. It had no doors, no lights, just one path, downward, like a throat. She entered. Inside, silence, true silence. So pure it felt violent. Her footsteps didn't echo. Her breath didn't carry. Even her thoughts felt dampened. The walls pulsed, not visibly, not audibly, but rhythmically, like an organ, a heart, a womb. Then she saw the first chair, like the ones from the lab, but older, built from root and wire, a skeleton of listening. And in it, a boy, not aged, not decayed, frozen, eyes wide, mouth open, breathing, but not alive. And next to him, 12 more chairs, empty, waiting. But one more stood apart, 14th, faced the opposite way. No markings, except one. A handprint, burned deep. Dia placed her hand inside. The floor responded. A tone began, low, familiar, then split, multiplied. Voices, not words, memories. She heard the campers, their dreams, their screams, their songs. Each one played like a note in a song, not written by human hands. She saw what happened. They weren't taken. They were awakened. Their minds had always been tuned for it, not by accident, by design. The camps, the chairs, the tones, they were part of system. An old one, older than speech. A way to interface with something buried in the earth's own mind. Something not evil, not kind, just vast, incomprehensible. And the spiral? It wasn't a symbol. It was a lock. And the campers? Each one was a key. But the 14th, that was different. The 14th was the breaker. Not meant to align. Meant to interrupt. A failsafe. Isaac Penn wasn't rejected. He was chosen to disrupt. Because what lay beneath the spiral should not finish waking. Dia stepped back. The song still playing. The humming rising. She heard Caleb's voice, far away, echoing through the stone. Don't finish the song. It listens. It learns. It builds what it hears. She ran, out of the cathedral, into the cold air, back into the forest. But the tone followed. The ground shook again. Trees bent backward. Birds flew without sound. And in the distance, a shape rose from the soil. Not a creature, a structure. Not man-made, not God-made, signal-made. She turned, fell, and behind her, a whisper. 13 were voices. You were the echo. The house hadn't changed in 30 years. Same yellow wallpaper, same quiet porch, same clock on the kitchen wall that stopped at 3:33 a.m. Every night. It was the home of Marjorie Ellis, mother of Daniel Ellis, one of the 13. She hadn't touched his room since the day he left. His backpack still sat by the door, shoes beside the window, a Polaroid taped to the lamp. Daniel, age 11, wide smile, holding a walkie-talkie, the caption in pen. Testing, can you hear me? He used to love radios. Built one from spare parts at age 9. Scanned late-night frequencies. Claimed he once picked up a number station from the Arctic Circle. Marjorie used to laugh. Now she wasn't so sure. For decades, she left his old ham radio plugged in. Always on. Never spoke. Never moved the dial. It sat on the desk like a shrine, waiting. And then, on the 32nd anniversary of his disappearance, the radio turned itself on. 3:33 a.m. No static, no stations, just breathing. She didn't know why she woke. Didn't remember rising from bed, only that she was sitting in the dark, listening, hands shaking, mouth dry. The sound was faint, but human, soft, unsteady. Then a voice, cracked, familiar. Mom. She collapsed. The doctor said it was shock, stress, hallucination, but she knew what she heard. Mom. I remember now. I didn't walk away. I was walked. She called everyone. Police, newspapers, the FBI. No one believed her. They filed her report away with the rest. Unresolved grief response. But the radio stayed on. Every night at 3:33. The same voice. Not always words. Sometimes tones. Sometimes gasps. Sometimes songs. A sequence. 13 notes. Then silence. Then one more. The 14th. The same harmonic. A local ham radio enthusiast offered to help. His name was Felix Wren. Former military. Radio cryptography. Retired. He came with equipment. Analyzed the signal. Expected interference. What he found shattered his understanding of sound. This isn't a transmission. It's not bouncing from a satellite. It's coming from below. He triangulated the origin. A dead patch of land in Idaho. Abandoned military zone. Same as Fort Weller. Same as the sinkhole Daya had found. Same as every place that had been erased from maps. He returned the next night. Hooked up a wide-range decoder. Sat with Marjorie at 3:30, 3:31, 3:32. Then, breath. And this time, the signal came through clear. I see the stairs now. There's light, but it isn't sun. It listens when we sleep. It dreams when we sing. Mom, I didn't mean to remember. Felix began shaking. He wasn't religious, but he crossed himself. Something about the voice. It wasn't just Daniel. There were others behind it, layered, stacked, singing from beneath the floor of the world. He ran spectral analysis. Each voice had its own frequency, own pulse, own rhythm, but together they formed a shape, not in sound, in space, a pattern that repeated every 13.7 seconds, one that matched radio telescope anomalies found in 1997, the ones scientists thought were from neutron stars. But this This was from inside Earth. He printed the waveform, drew the spiral, and realized it wasn't a spiral anymore. It was closing. The center wasn't empty. Not anymore. Marjorie began sleeping less, eating less. She claimed she could feel Daniel nearby, not in the room, in the walls, in the water. Once, she woke up to find mud on her floor, pine needles in the hallway, and the shoes, 13 of them, lined up against her front door, still warm. Then came the knock, 3:33 a.m. She didn't answer, couldn't, just stood behind the door, crying, whispering, "I'm sorry. I didn't stop them. I didn't know what the camp really was." The next morning, she found cassette on her porch, handwritten label, Daniel, 3:33 a.m. She played it. The sound was low, then rose, a melody, then a whisper. They showed us what's beneath. Not earth, not hell, something older, something that sleeps in patterns. Felix sent the tape to a sound lab in Vancouver. They analyzed the frequency and buried the report. He never got a copy, just a phone call. The voice on the other end said, "Delete it. Stop listening. Some songs shouldn't be sung." Then silence. He refused, and 2 days later, he vanished, gone from his home. No struggle, no note, just his equipment, still powered on, recording, and on the tape, a single line, 14. Marjorie stopped answering the phone, stopped going outside. She started drawing, circles, eyes, hands, over and over. Said she was dreaming of a hallway with no end, 13 doors on one side, and at the end, a mirror that showed her face as a child. When reporters asked her what she thought the radio really was, she said, "Not a machine, a wound that opens when no one's watching." And one night, the radio changed. No longer Daniel. A new voice, lower, slower, not human. It said, "The silence is cracking. It will echo soon." The song was a test. You passed. Now listen to the answer. The ground didn't tremble. It breathed, not all at once, but slowly, in pulses, like something remembering how. Dia felt it under her feet, in her spine, through her teeth. She had returned to the heart of the spiral. But this time, it was awake. The entrance wasn't hidden anymore. No hatch, no door. Just earth peeled back, like skin around an eye, exposing something round. Wet, pulsing. It wasn't a tunnel. It was a throat, and it had been waiting. She entered without speaking. There was no need. The air carried sound already. Not voices, not echoes. Memory. She passed the chairs again. Now broken, splintered, twisted, as if whatever sat in them had outgrown the shape of a body. On the walls, names. All 13. No longer scratched. Now glowing. Each letter pulsed in rhythm with the tone. Except one name. Caleb. It didn't glow. It throbbed. Faster. Sharper. Not in harmony, but in protest. She touched it and saw everything. 13 children. In a ring. Hands clasped. Eyes wide. A song humming between them. Not spoken. Not taught. Just known. Behind them, Caleb. Face frozen. Mouth open. Not screaming. Absorbing. As if he'd become part of the system. Not a prisoner. A resonator. Feeding the spiral with thought. And beneath them all, a shape, coiled, vast, unmoving, until the 13th note rang out. And then, a shimmer, a stir, a soft, wet cracking sound, like a jaw unhinging. Dia collapsed, her vision fractured, but her body kept moving, not by choice, by current. The ground guided her, downward, further, past where breath was useful, past where time existed, until she reached the core. It wasn't a room. It was a chamber, spherical, organic, dripping, alive, and in the center, not a machine, not an altar, a vessel, flesh-bound, pulsing, and full. She heard it then, not in her ears, inside her blood. A question, "Are you the final key?" She didn't answer. She couldn't. The tone was too loud, too complete. Then she saw the spiral, not drawn, not carved, built into the walls. The floor, her own hands, her fingers trembled, and the symbol was there, burned into her palm. She fell to her knees. The chamber responded. Lights pulsed, air thickened, and the voice returned. Not one, not many, but 13. Together, not in unison, in weave, like threads making a fabric. We didn't mean to open it. We only wanted to know. The sound taught us shape, but we are too small to hold it. The walls split, not cracked, opened, and behind them, eyes, not eyes like ours, eyes without lids, without pupils, eyes that reflected what they heard. And they were watching her, listening, repeating back her thoughts. Before she could even think them, Daya reached into her bag. The notebook, Isaac's. She opened to the last page. It had changed, no longer blank, now covered in a new spiral, with text, one phrase, handwritten, in Caleb's script. If it sings back, you were too late. She looked up, and the chamber sang, a note, high, sharp, final, a 14th tone, not made by mouth, made by echo, the echo of everything the campers ever felt, every dream, every scream, every moment of being more than a child and less than human. And then the mouth opened, not metaphor, not illusion, a mouth built of symbols, of sound, of sorrow, with a tongue made of memory. And it spoke. We use the children to remember the shape of freedom, because memory is not held in minds, but in echoes. The air shifted. The chamber began to vibrate. The flesh on the walls pulled back, and she saw it. The thing beneath the spiral was never sealed, only asleep, dreaming of being human, learning our language. From our pain, it began to rise, not upward, inward, inside her mind, curling behind her thoughts, whispering through her old memories, rewriting childhood. She screamed, but no sound came, only music, 13 tones, one final scream, 14th, and the world shifted, not physically, fundamentally, like gravity had changed its mind, and earth forgot its silence. Outside, trees bent sideways, rivers flowed in loops, birds flew in spirals until they vanished. In cities, people heard radios hiss, phones vibrate, TVs flicker to static, all broadcasting the same frequency. The one Daya had just heard. In a hospital bed across the country, Marjorie Ellis sat up for the first time in weeks, eyes open, mouth trembling. She whispered. They finished the song. And then the stars blinked, as if listening. There were no headlines, no breaking news, no sirens. When the spiral completed, no one noticed, not at first. It didn't happen with fire, or blood, or explosions in the sky. It happened in the silence between sounds, the hum of a refrigerator, the static between songs on the radio, the low throb of an engine at night. That's where it lived now. That's where it was waiting. The entity beneath the spiral didn't rise. It didn't need to. We did, because after the 13th note faded and the 14th tone whispered its last frequency, the world didn't collapse. It shifted, just enough to forget something important and remember something worse. Marjorie Ellis died with a smile on her face. Doctors said it was peaceful, but the nurse on duty swore she saw something just before. The clock stopped. 3:33 a.m., and the lights flickered in 13 pulses. Then one more. The radio in her room clicked on. No voice, just breath, and a child's voice. Mom, you don't have to wait anymore. Her bed was cold by morning, but the air smelled like pine, and on the windowsill, a single muddy shoe, still warm. The world moved on. Campgrounds reopened. People returned to the mountains. No signs, no warnings. The trails were quiet, but not empty. They found the bus again, same as before, burned, blackened, empty, except this time, all 13 seats were filled, not with bodies, with clothes, freshly folded, as if the wearers had simply stepped out and left themselves behind. One forest ranger swore he saw footprints leading away. 14 sets, all barefoot, marching in a spiral. In the weeks that followed, strange reports came in. My son woke up humming, said he had a dream in a circle. My daughter's drawings changed. All spirals now, one in black. The neighbor kid's eyes glowed in the dark, just for a second. Then he laughed like it wasn't his voice. No one believed them. They never do, until it's too late. Dia was never found. Not her body, not her bag, not her voice. Only her notebook, left on the edge of the spiral sinkhole, open to a new page, a symbol no one recognized, and 5 words written in red. The echo is building again. Experts dismissed it, filed it under conspiracy. Viral internet fiction, they called it, but in certain labs, behind doors with no labels, the signal still plays. Always at 3:33 a.m., always the same tones. 13 notes, one scream, and silence until it loops in a forgotten school storage room. Someone found the 1994 yearbook again. This time, Isaac Penn's name was missing. His face was there, but no label, just a tear in the page. And below it, scrawled in pencil, I never left. I just got quieter. All around the world, mirrors are cracking. Radios are humming. Children are humming songs no one taught them. People hear whispers in elevators, in tunnels, in dark basements they haven't entered in years. Sometimes the whispers say nothing. Sometimes they ask one question. Do you remember the spiral? Because the spiral was never a symbol. Not a trap, not a puzzle, not even a song. It was a mouth. And the campers? They weren't victims. They were vocal cords. 13 children, trained in sleep, tuned by loss, harmonized by fear, to sing the shape of the thing below, the thing without a name. And the 14th? That was the scream that told it. We are ready. Ready for what? We don't know yet, but something changed. You might feel it. Late at night, when your lights flicker, when your dreams feel like someone else's, when the wind outside doesn't blow, it pulls, and when your child sings to themselves in the dark, soft, rhythmic, a melody they never learned, listen carefully, because if the final note is a 14th, you'll know the spiral has come home, and it's listening.